Hi everyone, welcome to Module 2 of the course. In this week we are going to look at learning theory a little bit as it relates to online course design. While I recognize that this course is not fully about how to design an online course, it's about helping your students find opportunities to learn online. I do want to give you sort of a basic run-through of online course theory so that you sort of know where you're going with your students and sort of understand the style and structure decisions you're making and maybe the potential consequences with each. I'll try to keep this within 10 minutes. It's my second time running through, so that probably won't happen, but I'll be pretty close. This course uses what's called agile design. And I've done this intentionally to create a lot of freedom. Let me run through some of the basics and I'll try to do it without reading slides to you. The course design is flexible, and hopefully you've experienced that already. You're able to reach different goals. Some of you are creating fully online things, others are creating websites based for conferences. The content of the course to some degree is different for each of you. You all have some common experiences, but some of you may focus more in one area than another. You're taking very different approaches, and if you just run through your objectives in the first module, you will see that indeed you're taking very different approaches. When we have elementary education teachers and college or beyond university educators in a course, that's pretty inherent. And there's a lot of flexibility in the tools and techniques you are using to achieve your goals. This is not the kind of course where everything happens within Moodle. And indeed, there are many courses, whether they're Moodle, Blackboard, Canvas, or other learning management systems, where everything a student does, from reading to assessments, happen within the course. If there's no internet, there's no opportunity to do the course. In this case, you're doing things a lot differently. In this style design, the emphasis is on experiential learning as well as an experimental approach somewhat. For instance, the expectation for us is that you're creating real-world applications and real-world experiences. Your end assessment is not a test in Moodle. It's something that most of us will never really be part of because it'll be living with your students or your organization. There's a lot of freedom, and with that comes a fair amount of challenge. It needs a willingness for instructors to adjust on the fly, either for the full group or for individuals. Numerous times in the past week, I have found individual links that I've shared with just one or two of you because it's exactly what you were talking about, or tried to approximate that. It may not have had relevance for the whole group, and I'd throw people off if I continually popped out new links. That's what I mean by sort of this adjust on the fly for individuals. Likewise, with the closing assessment, some of you have projects that will look and feel very different from others. And it's all based on you, on starting out with your needs and your wishes. For instructors, it means I can't set this course up in May and just sit back and let it run. There are plenty of online courses where that can happen, and there are some times when that is a good thing. I'm sure for most of you that would not be a good thing. It would be very mechanical. You couldn't do anything outside the course, and it probably wouldn't meet your needs. As an instructor, it would pretty much just be collecting a paycheck. So this design does require flexibility from the instructor, and flexibility and perhaps a willingness to not stress over the fine details for students. Some students like to open a week, see everything that's due, and that's the work. Nothing more, nothing less. They want steps very super clear. Clearly, when you popped into Module 1 and saw the closing major project, you would have known this is not that kind of class. I did not spell out exactly what needed to happen in that project. Those are kind of the tenets of Agile design. Online learning experiences that follow a communities of practice model really are definitely not for young children, and probably not so much for high school students. One of you, though, is talking about doing kind of a writer's cafe online, and this is probably the model that this might follow. If you've ever been in a writing project, online experience, or a professional learning group where you decided to do meetings online, you've probably been part of a communities of practice. The emphasis is not on instruction, though there could be some instructional components. The emphasis is on shared experiences, bringing people together by a common interest, and it's on participating. And participating is not generally assessed. Some people will participate huge amounts, while others really just pop in and out to get what they need and share one or two things. This is about sharing information. The outcomes maybe are very different for people. Some people want to get loads of information, other people just want to have a connection. And that connection may not be sustained. Very definitely, it's ideal for some, for others lacking. If you're doing a high school English class and your online experiences are communities of practice model, don't expect there to be a lot of instruction going on. Definitely don't expect there to be assessments, but do expect there to be, hopefully, rich buy-in to online conversation. Just stay aware that if you start assessing that conversation, you probably are changing the motivations for people participating, and that can have different consequences. Another design model is competency-based. My daughter took an online German class from Brigham Young University, and she'd never spoken a word of German. She has no German-speaking people around her, and this was the ideal model. Each week she had a number of things to read or listen to, specific tasks she had to do, and then she had to move to the next step. It was very definitely the kind of approach where you could not skip to week 2 unless you did week 1, and everything was step by step. When you did one thing, there was a big green check, and it moved into the next thing. That was a competency-based model. It required people to go step by step. Things are super clear, and the response is pretty much immediately and usually with a big check mark. Definitely discussion, shared knowledge, creating knowledge out of discussion and illuminating thoughts is not the focus. The focus is on learning the content, showing you know the content, at least for that moment, and then moving to the next one. Large value on the assessments. There is 0 option for variability. You do it or you take a 0. And if you're an organization, it's incredibly repeatable, very scalable. The courses were set up probably not even by the instructor. The instructor was available for questions, and that was pretty much it. Actually, in this case, if you needed extra help for a $50 to $200 fee, you could get that extra help. So it was that mechanical. Let me just pop. So collaborative learning is the last model we'll talk about. It is similar to communities of practice, but with assessments. And it's similar to agile learning, but not so flexible. Really, for some people, an agile learning model might be so flexible that they just don't have huge structure. Um, Discussion forums are important, and often they lead to new knowledge. An instructor takes a strong role in discussion forums. They kind of know the end result and how to get people there, and they work at those conversations with prompting, probing questions to guide people to that end conclusion. Knowledge comes from the course interactions. While there is material presented, the true end walk away, here's what I have learned, comes from a combination of the content and the people and what they bring to the table. There is a strong teacher role and very active guidance within the group, usually within the discussion forums, though that can venture as well into the more personal message board and response forums. You'll notice so far in Module 1, I think I've commented on everyone's work in a public way. I don't think I've commented privately to people. So there's the idea that hopefully you're reading through the forums and part of my teaching happens within these forums. I have shared new links. I may toss out theory or other ideas related to someone's comment with the hope that other people gain from that. That's sort of the role in online collaborative learning. And it's not just the instructor, but it's other learners who are doing this. And people are definitely doing this. For a summer course so far, folks are incredibly engaged in the forums. So while I started off with the design of agile learning, it very definitely flows into online collaborative learning. I think the only real true difference is the flexibility. And that flexibility is just because people come from so many different ranges. If this class was designed for middle school English teachers to create Moodle classrooms, then I would not be following an agile learning model. We'd be following probably online collaborative or a little more competency based. You would have certain steps to do each week. You would get points for doing those steps, and in the end you would have a full working Moodle class. Can't do that when people want to do so many different things, which is a great thing in my view. Lastly, about this model, the learners actively shape the results of the course. So in an online collaborative learning model, the end is very directly tied to the voices within the class. And it's really the instructor's role to sort of guide those voices. It's not an totally open book, but people definitely have a big say. So I am not in any way proposing that you adopt any one of these models or any of there are really dozens of other models as well. Because for most of you, your online experiences you're creating are extensions of what you're doing in the classroom. You already have a teaching model for your classroom instruction. You're not about to change a first grade class into an agile design or a super mechanical competency-based model. But I do think it's important to be aware of how you're going about using online experiences and what they're going to look like, both from your perspective as well as from the learner's perspective. I hope this was helpful. We'll see you in Module 2.